information from county health and others. And so we are providing this opportunity to continue the dialogue with you. And we're excited to be in studio this evening, first with Dr. Leonard Thompson, our partner in communication here, and second and not least of all, Ms. Francine Maxwell, president of the San Diego chapter of the NAACP. And I think that the three of us have really formed a partnership of service to the San Diego community. So when I hear this song, "A Train is Coming," we are on the train. The warning is to the ones who aren't standing on the tracks, because this train is moving in terms of service and reaching our friends and neighbors. We have a great deal to talk about this evening. We're going to spend some time on the local NAACP because of the work that's being done, the importance of the organization, especially in the midst of what we're fighting nationally. And a lot of us don't know that in addition to the NAACP local chapters, we still have fighting for us every day in court the NAACP Legal Defense Fund, which is a separate arm doing battle on many scenes for us. So we're excited about tonight. As you know, today was the third day of Judge Barrett's illegal, forced, ill-gotten confirmation hearing. We know that voting is taking place right now. I think that Congressman John Lewis would be just thrilled at the good trouble so far. Over 14 million people have cast their ballots. People are standing in lines 4 and 5 hours. Those Republican elements that are engaging in voter suppression are becoming even more visible, as seen in Harris County, one of the largest county in the country, where a Republican appellate judge held them to one the pickup site for a couple of million people. But as a lady said in Atlanta, who was standing in line, she says, "We don't care how long it takes. We are out here because our very lives depend on our votes." And so to see people of all shades and colors standing 6, 12 feet apart, seeing folks bringing food, pizza, and water and stuff to the ones standing in line, seeing people standing in line after it's dark and they're still waiting to vote, and they're determined that their ballots are not going to be frustrated. We've got leadership in the register of voters in these suppression areas, slowing the machines, trying to lose ballots. But, Gamaliel, who was one of the teachers of Paul in the New Testament, when they started complaining about what was taking place, and he made this statement to the Sanhedrin court. He said, he says, "If the idea be of man, if you just wait a while, it will come to pass." He said, "But if the idea be of God, there's nothing you can do to stop it." And so the idea of getting a new president is of God at this time because it is morally right and righteous. And we see the pandemic at work on the Republican members of the Senate. And maybe they ought to go back and look in the book of Daniel and read the handwriting on the wall when a finger appeared and said, "TK, TK, Omar Safreli," and the translation that Daniel gave them was, "Thou hast been weighed in the balance and found wanting." So this president certainly has been found wanting with the total of over 216,000 people dead. Today in San Diego County, over 300 and some new cases, 4 new deaths, 850 some people dead in this county, 51,000 cases so far in this county. And the tragedy of it is that a lot of these numbers here and nationally could be avoided but for the ignorance and the stubbornness of people who refuse to do a simple thing like wear a mask. And so we're not going to dwell on them this evening because we got a lot of, as they say, we got a lot of fish to fry, and we got to get to the fish and get to the frying. Dr. Thompson.
Well, I'm really excited about this time. We're less than 3 weeks away from the election, and it's a time of change. And I think that it's so important that that we stay conscious, we stay woke, and we don't just rest on just the laurels of one win or two wins, but we need to realize that there is an ongoing battle that we will face even after the election is over. And that's why I'm excited about tonight to talk about collaborations between the organizations in the city of San Diego and abroad And I always want to say that a lot of times when people think of collaborations in their city, they only look at just their city, but they're not realizing that those collaborations go well beyond their city. For you to be a successful influencer, you have to be able to influence in your city and out of your city. You have to be able to influence in DC and in Sacramento and in other states so that you will have the power. And I'm thankful tonight that we actually have two people that are here tonight with us that have that power in you, Dr. Warren, and Miss Francine Maxwell. When I call her one of the community warriors that I've known now for probably over 25 years. And I always like to say this, Dr. Warren. The one thing about Miss Maxwell is she's a straight shooter.
Yes.
You know,
My
there have
kind
been
of person.
times. There's been times that we've been on the same team, and there's been times that we've been on opposite teams.
Okay.
But she always, it's scary when someone calls you up and have a conversation and say, "Oh well, we're gonna be on opposite sides, but let's have lunch next week."
Yeah.
and literally, we keep it proactive because we understand that it is for the communities that we serve. So I'm so excited tonight to have you, Miss Maxwell, and just want people to get to know who
Yes.
she is and the background. So can I kick it off a little
Sure,
bit?
please do that. Have a
So
talk.
so Miss Maxwell, everybody knows you at this current season as the president of the San Diego NAACP, or the San Diego branch. But before that, I want to go all the way back to when it first started for you as a community warrior and a community activist.
Okay, well, thank you, Dr. Thompson. Thank you, Dr. Warren. Appreciate the invitation to come out tonight. I became involved when I purchased a home in southeastern San Diego. I was a single mom raising her two children, and I saw some things that I wasn't pleased with when I go to visit my friends that live on north of 8th. So I called up my councilman, and at the time it was the late, great Reverend George Stevens, and he said, "Oh, okay, well, let's meet and let's walk." So he came and he met me at Encano Rec Center, and I walked with him and talked to him about things I didn't like. And he had a clipboard and he handed it to me and he was like, "Take notes." And that was so moving to me that I got to meet my councilman. I didn't vote for him because I had just purchased my home in southeastern San Diego and Encanto, but he said, "Take notes." And everything that I complained about, he said, "That's Encanto Planning Group, go join." I complained about some things, go join Park and Rec. I did everything that he told me to do on that list, on that moment. And that propelled me to the Me Shacks, sitting and listening to living history and getting about what happened when they were here, what they changed, and what it was my turn to change. And so that's what I've always been about since I moved in Encanto. Just change. Whatever you didn't like, be the change that you want to see. Listen to the elders, listen to the elected officials, point you in the right direction, and then roll your sleeves up and go to work. And I've just been working ever since.
So that's where the history of you taking notes and knowing exactly where to go, because the one thing that I've noticed about you over the years of you working in schools and in the community is that your research ability is amazing and you never come forward until the research is complete.
Jewel Hooper, George Stephen, Charles Lewis, he was also my councilman. And Charles, he had a meeting every Saturday where he would meet with constituents, come in to my office and just sit. And so you had to take notes because he was educating and empowering his community on how to come down to the city council to back him up on what he's saying from the diocese. And so note taking has just always been extremely important, and research, gotta have it.
So let me ask this. When did you officially become the hit woman? Because there have been times that I have sat on committees and boards and things of that nature, and when you come up to make your presentation, I already see them bracing because they know that you get ready to come and hit them with some things that they're not going to be able to respond to effectively.
I think when I joined Encano Little League, I joined Encano Little League as a team mom, worked the snack bar, became an assistant coach. I coached a team, and then I became the president of Encano Little League. And I became the hit woman during my Encano Little League days because our little league wasn't like everybody else's little league. And so I had to, just like they say, you have to fight and scrape. Being a woman in baseball, they didn't, when I went to my division meetings, when I went to my district meetings, I wasn't well received. And so I had to make sure that my voice was heard, that our little league got just as much in the distribution when someone made a donation as everybody else. So I do believe it was my Encano Little League years that formed me to become the researcher, the hit woman, because I had to demand everything for my kids.
Well, as I listen to you, it's so it takes me back so because, as you know, my late wife Jerry Warren was a former president of the NAACP,
Yes.
and it's so many similarities because as a single mom, she was very involved with all of the school groups, and she was involved with the churches and the what did you call that club at Lincoln they had?
The PTA and the PTOs and
Yeah, and there was other clubs too that they had where the kids are involved. But she did like you. She made sure that she made her mark in terms of the community, and the NAACP was an important place. But the other thing that stands out as I was listening, Sister Maxwell is a phenomenal um, um, parliamentarian, if you will, a member of Toastmasters, a person who has really mastered how you handle a meeting. And I certainly can appreciate that. I'm parliamentarian to the board of directors of the National Newspaper Publishers Association, and we have 200 papers now in our 193rd year. I learned my parliamentary procedure literally at the feet of Adam Clayton Powell as he chaired meetings, and I followed the procedure for the meetings. And I am just always totally impressed at how Mrs. Maxwell handles a meeting. One of the things I noticed at an NAACP meeting at one point that I was there was the extent to which she sets a time limit on things, which is the way it should be, and so it moves decent and in order, and she doesn't try to both chair and talk the meeting to death either. She gives people time, and I think it's so important, Dr. Thompson, to just highlight all the years that I've been here and I've watched. I don't think the NAACP really, probably, except going back to Jerry's days, because when Jerry was president, she was also field rep to Senator Mills, who was, and Tony Atkins is the first person from San Diego to chair the Senate in 40 years since that time. And so, but I'm always impressed with the extent to which you've been able to bring people together, and you've been able to have the league, the NAACP, stay powerful without compromising it. And I think that's so important because there have been periods in the past when it looks like the people at the helm were just there to get a donation, to hold a dinner, and wait to beg for the next year. And so I'd like for you, because we're giving this time tonight, we got an election coming up in less than 30 days in terms of the NAACP. I make no bones about the extent to which the Voice and Viewpoint supports Mrs. Maxwell for president. It's been my pleasure working with her. I can't remember in recent years, I won't say never because maybe one or two, but in recent years, it's been a long time since we had someone who understood the importance of a relationship between the NAACP, the black press, black media, so that we get word to our communities and we reach out and help people. And I want to tell you that what you do here, and I've shared this with you before, um, you're the only reason that I still even talk to Derek Johnson or listen or run any of his stuff, because the national president has been so negligent in terms of reaching out and supporting people like yourself. And we have other issues in the state tonight. We have the state president who's running a whole bunch of commercials, and there's a real strong feeling that what's taking place there is really a pimping of the name of the NAACP for certain dollars. Now, I don't expect Mrs. Maxwell, in due respect and position and everything, I can say these things, and I don't expect her to nod, blink, acknowledge, or anything. She can just look blank, but I ain't got no problem telling it the way it is, okay? And it's raggedy, and it's the same thing that happened back in 2018 when we had an election and we had things on the ballot like rent on the Proposition 10, and she took a lot of money and sold out, as far as people concerned, many organizations to do so. And now here's the ultimate insult to both of you. I share this, that people last week were receiving in the mail some kind of minority newspaper. And one of my members called me and said, my church member said, I got this little minority paper in the mail. Pastor, what should I do with it? I said, you can either throw it in the trash or wrap fish, depending on which one is closest, okay? Because that's been the game, to get the money and then dump stuff. When we weren't in pandemic, papers were dumped at our churches as if all you have to do is just dump some stuff on black people, and that's going to be sufficient while you go to the bank. So we're fighting an uphill battle against some of the problems and corruption. I don't mind mentioning it because I always like to remind white people that we're not the only ones that have issues. We already see their issues in the stacking of the court and all the things that are going on. And we still in the midst of our struggle, while we're still trying to save the ship, we still got some people knocking holes in the bottom if they can. And so it's just what we have to work with to overcome to save what we're doing. So I wanted to get those things off my chest because y'all are very nice and polite people. And I don't mind telling them what I think about it because there's nothing they can do about it. But I just think that we need to keep it honest and straight and upfront. And I thank you for listening. Now let's go on with this. Let her tell us what's going on.
Well, what I want to say, Dr. Warren, is that very, very true. There are a lot of things that are going on that we see that some people agree with and some people don't agree with. And the one good thing that we have is the opportunity to choose and to let our voice be heard. And even today, we've been seeing a lot of people let their voice be heard. And this is the season.
Yes,
and,
it is.
But the biggest thing is, and after this season, what next? And so, Miss Maxwell, I actually want to talk about, I've watched you over the years do the what next and the what moves to do next. So I want to say to you, let's talk about the NAACP currently.
Yes,
you know what
please.
I'm saying? And what has been happening since you have become president. You were first vice president,
Yes.
and now you are have been in the role of president for about what, 6
6
months?
months.
6 months.
Wow.
Let's talk about your 6 month tenure.
Well, for the last 6 months, I've been able to navigate through some troubling waters within the NAACP San Diego branch. We have saw through the murder of George Floyd, where the nation, the world, was sitting still for 8 minutes and 46 seconds. Everybody was still. I feel that the Lord said, we've had a lot of people on videos that have been brutalized, murdered, but the Lord said for 8 minutes and 46 seconds, the world will stop. I will stop
Yes.
it. And he did. And so we were able for the world to see what we've already known and what we've experienced. So we had an upswing in our membership. People became civilly engaged. The marches are looking different. All ages, all ethnicities are coming together, and they're saying that enough is enough. The NAACP San Diego branch, we started this tenure, this regime in 2019. So the goal was always membership. Instantly, upon 2019's new regime, there was an uptake in membership. We've been consistent in sending out the membership message, constantly recruiting. We've put ads in the Voice and Viewpoint so graciously, and we've constantly put the name out there. And that's what people want to see. They want to know that you have a working, viable, livable branch and
Yes.
that they want to be a part of. And so we've, of course, once the murder of George Floyd, the numbers went up, but the groundwork had really started in 2019 to change and turn this branch around as it pertains to membership.
Yeah, and one of the things we're going to talk about, the layout, but we did notice that there was a big upswing in membership even before George Floyd,
Yes.
even before the pandemic, and now we're just growing by leaps and bounds. But there's a reason for that, because there have been many people that are joining now that didn't join back in the day, and that was because they were looking for something to be a part of that was moving. And I think that the NAACP now is moving to a whole nother level. You guys are on warp speed versus the way it was back in the day.
Yes, many members have renewed their membership and they've shared why they renewed. They have been able to pull up social media and see that the NAACP San Diego branch is speaking their language, that an idea that they had and they sent an email to the NAACP picked it up. We did a press release and we called a meeting, whether it was pre-COVID in person or we're doing the Zoom meetings. A lot of people are very pleased with action. They want to know that this legacy organization, NAACP San Diego branch, is celebrating 101 years, century for a century. So we've been standing guard for San Diego for 101 years. There was some quiet years. And so as one of our elders, Hal Brown, called me the other day, he said, "Sister, I need you to keep pushing. What I'm seeing, I haven't seen in over 20 something years. I'm excited." He
Yeah.
said, "I'm getting stronger. And as a life member, I will be back. I will walk into your meeting after COVID when you guys start meeting." And to hear Hal Brown, he's going to be providing some books for the youth so that they can read about his story. Those are the kind of things that it just warms you to know when you have living history and you celebrate living history. That is vital. And our youth, they are there for it. We just recently had a town hall with Generation Justice of San Diego with the probation department, and it was wonderful.
Well, I'm going to hold you up right quick and a shout out to Hal Brown. He's a big reason why I have my degree today.
Okay.
He stepped in the gap. But we have a phone call, and so I want to take it right quick. Phone caller, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Yes. What is your question or your statement?
I would like to know why Ms. Maxwell stepped up immediately and reached out to everybody she knew to make sure she had everything right on time and knew all the rules, knew what the bylaws and everything was. Why was that so important to her to make sure that she represented us so well?
All right. So did you hear the question?
I did.
All right.
And thank you, Sister Rochelle, for asking that question. I know that voice anywhere. What was very important to me was what I had been hearing in the community, that people take positions and it's for themselves. It's not for the organization. As I shared, this is a legacy organization. People paved the way for me to walk down, and I'm just dusting down the road so that I can pass it down to the next generation. I'm doing some restructuring, and so that's catching Generation Justice Eye, the new millennials. They want to take it, rebrand it, but they wanted to know that there was a strong foundation. So it was very important for me to make sure that everybody knows the mission and the vision of the NAACP, what the 6 game changers are, and acquaint yourself, if you're in a leadership position, with the Constitution and the bylaws, and adjust yourself accordingly. Like I said, we've had some many quiet years and some many rocky years, and I was going to make sure that my 2-year term was not going to be controversial.
Well, Ms. Maxwell, 2 things then real quick I want to ask, because as I listen to you, right up the road, we have a North County NAACP. And I know over the years, the Voice and Viewpoint has tried very hard to pull North County closer to us with some great difficulty. How is that? Is there a relationship there with you and the North County leadership?
It most definitely is. North County President is Satia Austin. She's a wonderful president, and she also happens to be our area director. She is just so responsive to any question or anything, and she's working on making sure that we get together more.
Good. I think that's so important.
One of the things that I do like when I say collaboration, there's been so many times that the San Diego branch has requested things and they have been overlooked time and time again. But I've seen now that you're building your board and building your team, that when we're not being responded to as an NAACP, you have enough power brokers on your team to make phone calls to make sure that we are heard. Let's talk about the team members that you're bringing in, and also your game plan for the young people and the succession plans.
What I'm looking in is after the election, that we have a solid base, a solid group of people that want to move the train. They don't want a resume booster. They want to roll up their sleeves and work. And I have reached out to some housing specialists. I've reached out to some super pastors that want to become civically engaged. Some are new to San Diego, which is wonderful and refreshing, so that they knew what NAACP meant in their hometown, and they immediately pulled up our website and said, I need to be engaged. And so it's a funny period of time, as I shared, because our election is November 12th. So I've been having people work in little ad hoc committees to keep them engaged, to keep them excited. I couldn't put them in chairs of positions because I couldn't expose them to the dysfunction that has been occurring at the branch. Your sole purpose to be at the branch, to be an executive committee member, is to protect the brand. And so I like to seek out people that want to protect the brand and move this legacy organization to the next level.
Well, I think that's a very important observation that you made there because I know over the years I've made many efforts to try and stimulate membership in the San Diego chapter of the NAACP. And I've had people call many times through many leaders. I think one of the persons that gave the most time to trying to answer all the calls was Frank Jordan when he was president. And it always amazed me that people would call looking for help, but they wouldn't take time to make the investment to join. And they have a sense of entitlement, and they need to understand. And I'm forever pushing. That's why I push the NAACP so hard, because we've functioned in an advocacy role, and the NAACP is helpful to us in terms of trying to get justice because it's an organization that's respected. And I think that's very important at this time because the other organization that's supposed to be equally as respected in the community with its institutional history is the Urban League. And the Urban League has just, gone to sleep, pulled up the covers. It's not doing or saying anything locally at all. And there are issues nationally. And for Ms. Maxwell to be working so hard locally when there's so many national pressures coming. Case in point, people are throwing money now, as I put in an editorial a couple of months ago, Black for a Moment. They're throwing money at whatever they see black as if that can make up for what's taking place. And I understand that Eli Lilly just gave over $100 million to the National Urban League. And it's going to be interesting to see if any of those dollars even come west, let alone south, in terms of what's happening. But the significant thing here is that this chapter is not waiting on a handout from anyone. This chapter is working. It's rolled up its sleeves and is working with what it's got. And, your work always reminds me of a baccalaureate sermon that Adam Clayton Powell gave once at Howard University. And the theme of it was, what's in your hands? He talked about David having 5 little stones. And here in your hands, you didn't ask for this leadership position, but it was thrust upon you. And in accepting it, you have turned it into something important. And I think it's so significant that we're taking this time tonight because historically, we still have too many people who only call when they have a need, but they don't call to be of service. And I want to show the other hat. Ms. Maxwell is co-chair of Black Men and Women United. And Black Men United has been in this community for 15 years. At one point, there was a separate entity with the women. We united the group. She chairs that meeting at this point every Tuesday from 8 to 9:30 with people from all walks of life in San Diego on this conference call as we talk about how we can help each other and be of service. And so when I want to know what's going on, she's on top of the Board of Education. She's on top of the City Council. She's on top of the Board of Supervisors. She's got the data. I've sat in meetings with her, with the superintendent, when the people tried to snow us with all kind of files, and she's right there. She's already read the stuff, and she knows what's happening with it. And we need to replicate that because so many times we burn out those that contribute. And so I'm glad there's a young element, but we got to do all we can for the fire to be lit in them so that they want to do more. And here's where I am encouraged with what I see. Every Tuesday that I'm at the Jacobs Center, and I watch those people, those young people, putting those hundreds of bags of food together, and they're giving. And so that's so important, and I think they got the spirit of what you're talking about.
They
and
do.
You're going to keep that fire going.
So One of the things I want to ask you is that you're so active in the community, and so now that you're the president of the NAACP San Diego branch, let's talk about the massive salary that you get in being in the
Oh,
presidency, because
yes.
I think that's important that people know how large your salary is,
Oh,
and
yes.
why you're so available.
Well, thank you, Dr. Thompson, for that question. The NAACP San Diego branch is 100% volunteer, so we don't get paid anything. When I'm running from meeting to meeting, that's on my dime, my gas card. The NAACP doesn't give me anything. The NAACP has a budget. We pay our office, we pay for Wi Fi, we pay for printing and things like that. That's what the budget is for. It's not for any one person. Um, Being that we're all COVID-19, there's no meeting in person, so we don't have to have food. We don't have to have drink. So the NAACP budget is very solid. It sits there, it's untouched. Every penny is accounted for, and it's a wonderful feeling when someone can call and they know that their donation, if they wanted to go to a restricted account, that's where it goes. If they wanted to go into the general fund, that's where it goes. I do I brag a lot about the 2019 Freedom Fund Dinner Committee because although they were not handed any information from the previous years, they showed up, they showed out, and we didn't make as much as we would have liked, but the atmosphere, the relationships that were built far outweighed any bottom line that could have been. The NAACP San Diego branch 2019 Freedom Fund dinner did everything it was supposed to do. It reinvigorated the city of San Diego to what the NAACP could be.
So one of the things is, and just me being a person that was a part of problem solvers for many different organizations, there were many times that we came across each other, sometimes on the same side and sometimes on the opposite side. But the one thing that I did notice about the NAACP is that they were always excluded from the table so many years where, you would see the ADL or the Urban League or someone else be invited to the table. Many times the NAACP was either overlooked or they were not given the respect that they should have as being the strong organization that they are. Now that you are in the presidency, I've noticed that you have very strong positions throughout the whole entire city for the NAACP, and you're not just sitting on all the boards, but you're literally spreading it out throughout your organization. And so I want you to talk about that because I noticed that when I look at TV, I just don't see you. I see several other people doing TV spots or doing things for the NAACP. So let's talk about the strength and the strength of the organization at this point.
What's always been important to me is there's no I in team. And so just because I have the title of president doesn't mean that I have to be at every news conference, that I have to be at that a reporter can only speak to me. I authorize a lot of people throughout the organization. If that's your lane and that's your passion, do the interview, write the article. It's an open door invitation. As I stated, it's a 100% volunteer organization. I need to keep people excited. I need to keep people engaged. What was so wonderful for me recently was that a brand new member, she's a Caucasian woman, she wanted to know if she could have a book club. And I said, you sure can. You're going to lead it. So when you suggest something, I need you to be active for that suggestion. Don't try to give me any more assignments. I need you to make a suggestion and how you're going to do it. She got in here. She rolled her sleeves up. She has a book club. They, of course, can only read African or African American authors. We're 2 months in. She's starting to attract African American women. She's so excited. She's so excited.
And that's an important point to make here because the name stands for the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People. And so many of us, it's surprised to know that there were white people who were actually founders of the NAACP in New York. But this chapter here has people of color, black, white, Latino, Asian. All these people now have a sense of that they can belong and be a part of it. So I think that's a very important element to bring to the community because we have a lot of separate groups saying that they want to bring people together, but yet they don't have meetings and events that encourage people coming together. And so this is an important feature of what you're doing.
So let me ask you this. Let's talk about the young people.
Okay.
You know, you have been a community activist and educational champion for many years. But let's talk about the plan for the young people with AXO and STEM and what you're currently doing to push that effort.
Well, right now I'm recruiting for an AXO chair. And so we've had some people that have interest in AXO. So it's all about going to the website, san diego naacp.org, and looking. There's over 18 committees. There has to be something that you're interested in and that you can lead. And if not, you create it. Like I said, we didn't have a book club at San Diego NAACP branch. This new member, she wanted it, she created it, she's been working it, and it's a wonderful thing. I believe that our youth are our future. My walk, my everyday is about how I can make something better for them because I truly believe that they are taking notes, they're watching. Where I had a pen and a pad, I had a clipboard with the George Stevensons, the Meshachs, the Charles Lewises, just different genres. They have their iPad, they have their iPhones, but they're still taking notes. And
It's
I
important.
make sure that I'm walking and they said, Miss Francine, what you say is what you mean and you mean what you say. And that's important to have a young person say that to you. And I've always lived my life like that. I enjoy my children. I sent them off to a HBCU and people still come up to me and they want to hear that story. How could you not let your children apply for any schools in California? I couldn't. I needed them to go away and
Yes.
experience what an HBCU is. And my daughter went to Bennett in Greensboro, North Carolina. When she walked in and she saw the owner of the store was African American, the people sweeping up was African American, the people shopping was African American, she just started doing a church dance. They knew she was from California, so they thought she was weird. And
Yeah.
so my son, he went to Lincoln University in Jefferson City, Missouri. So he got to go back and forth to Kansas City with the Michael Brown. He got to see what people engage with each other, and it's just wonderful for them to do exactly what we wanted them to do: go away from college, come back home, and change the community.
And that's so very important because many of our kids from the West Coast, they need that East Coast black experience. That's why we did Gold Coast Classic when we did it and brought all of the black college fairs and people like Carlton Overstreet was one of the first that we sent to Howard University. And so it's sometimes we take it for granted, at least those of us who come from back there,
Right.
because we've grown up in that. We've gone to those institutions. But it's so important to see people like your children come back because so many of them don't come back. They decide to stay in terms of the East Coast. And even now, my daughter Chida is in graduate school in terms of uh, back in Atlanta, because of that relationship. And she's talking about how much she's learning just in terms of the culture, in spite of how she grew up and the exposure she had, but she's still getting it. So I think this is important that you're giving that kind of hope and experience to young people. And the question is to be, what other things can we do? I wanted to mention, too, while we were going, Dr. Thompson, so that we remind people that those who wanted to call in, and I know some might be following us on Facebook or Periscope, but 858-251-6111 is the number in terms of call-in comments if you want to raise a question or make a comment to our guest tonight, and or if you are following us at godradio1.com. And so we encourage from both elements, and our programs are also archived that people will be able to pick up and go over them after this program is even over. So we want to continue, but this is pushed to NAACP time. We're glad to do it. We hope people are paying attention. We don't want folks to sleep the election. And you might say a word, Sister Maxwell, about how the voting is going to be done, because that's very key that people understand the software that's been purchased and what National is doing to do virtual elections.
Sure.
Since we are so caught up in election panic right now, and voter suppression. We need to let people know this ain't going to be
Well,
suppressed.
due to COVID-19, there was a strong recommendation that people try to come up with a different platform. So some people are actually doing a drive-by election. Some people are doing phone. They're doing Zoom. So the NAACP San Diego branch, we voted on, and the general body supported the recommendation for electronic. So we voted on Election Buddy, and it just so happens that National, they voted and they are going to purchase Election Buddy nationwide. So
Okay.
now we don't have to incur the expense of Election Buddy. So some months ago, we sent out a postcard to all the membership that didn't have email, alerting them to let them know that we needed you to have a family member help you set up an email, because that's how you're going to be able to vote. You'll get an email through Election Buddy with your security code, your identity, everything is just so secure, and it's you. And so we have people that need to still call or send an email to our secretary so that we can update their emails.
But you also need to point out so people don't get confused. If you got multiple members of a household that are members, they all can't use the same email.
No, Dr. Warren, each person has to have a
That's
separate
important to let
email.
them know.
And so
Yes.
the postcard that we sent out, it specifically said that
Yeah.
every person in that home has to have a
All
separate
right.
email. We've also sent out a special newsletter, and we'll be really hitting it hard towards the end of the month for October. There'll be another blast email. There'll be another extra newsletter just to remind people, please check your email, contact the secretary so that she can update if you've changed your email. Some people have decided to update their email to something else.
Can you give us at least two, I won't say three, but just two of the most important things on the agenda as we move, because we're going to win the election and move forward. So we need the priorities. What are a couple of the most important priorities going forward, since we're still stuck in the pandemic and we got all kind of issues confronting us with ordinances, and we expecting that there's going to be a surge in evictions once the prohibitions are lifted. We still got the homeless elements, and we got food lines growing, and we got a Congress that's more concerned about a Supreme Court judge than getting additional relief money to the people of this country. So, what are, say, two of the most important things you see from where the NAACP sits? And let us people understand too. I don't mean to cut you off, but whatever you're doing, remember they need to understand that you have a relationship with National that mandates that even as you're raising monies, you have to give so much to National to still maintain what you're doing. And so we need people to understand that. Could you say a word about those two things?
Well, the first thing that's extremely important moving forward will be 21st century policing. And
Okay.
so, in this time, in this climate, people are learning what 21st century is. And so, we have a new committee that's led by Dr. Brown, and he's educating people about 21st century. What has been so wonderful and the welcoming spirit is that we've had undersheriffs join the San
Okay.
Diego NAACP. There's nothing like having someone sitting on that Zoom with you who's employed. And if there's an issue, he can take that issue back. He can get you an answer within 48 hours. That's something that was missing and lacking
Okay.
in the NAACP in prior years, is the connection that you needed to have. There wasn't a welcoming spirit. I've had people recently join. They didn't know that they were welcome to join. And I said, why
Right.
not? Why not? And they said, we never heard the call. We never heard the call that the door was open for us to walk in. And so these undersheriffs, they sit there. You know, we had this is our fifth in custody death. And so they are there to answer your questions, to take down the comments, and they go straight back and they bring you back the information. And then the NAACP San Diego branch will continue with our lawsuit. The courts are now getting ready to open back up.
Yes, they are.
We're suing the Housing Commission for racial discrimination, the voucher issue, which is extremely important. And then, of course, you know, my favorite, my passion is education. I'm gearing up that after I win the election, that we will be suing on the miseducation of African American children and African
right.
children. That's my goal.
Okay, so let me jump in real quickly and say that the budget of the NAACP that you have put together is at as large as it's ever been at one given time. A lot of times people say, well, what is that money used for? And I encourage people to understand that it costs to do lawsuits. It costs to do filings and things of that nature. Where you have put the NAACP back in the position to be able to affect change, because now you can hire the lawyers, or the lawyers that represent the NAACP can go forth and do the filings. And so when people are giving and joining and donating, it's not for any salaries. It is truly to make effective change. It's like I always tell people, it's very hard to get any institution to do anything, but the minute you say they've been served, all of a sudden they will come to the table and they will talk. So let's talk about just the power of the power that you have now to be able to make moves, because you now have a budget that sustains the movement.
Well, like I said, I celebrate the foundation that was laid in 2019. We were able to have a Freedom Fund dinner committee that started from nothing. And so when I tell you that this group of women, they dug in their pockets. We weren't handed anything. So we didn't know who had sponsored all the years prior. So when I say that they shook the trees and they went and ripped up carpets, they made their own copies of sponsorship packets. We knocked on doors. And so we put our name out there. And so once the climate changed and people, they start to see the shift. Since I've been president for the last 6 months, I've done over 35 press releases. In 2018, there were only 7 press releases coming from the branch. And so when people hear you on Kogo, they watch you on KUSI, they said, wait a minute, let's give them some money because they need to shift the atmosphere. And so, as Dr. Thompson said, we are gearing up to be what this legacy organization was called to be in San Diego. I still talk to people that were on the board years and years ago. I still hear the stories from Ragsdale. There's family members still living. And so when you take, there's a whole bunch of things that don't have to be repeated. Just do what the book tells you to do. They wrote the book, just turn the page. And you just have to add a couple of things. And so we are driven to make sure that we're on top, that we're a force to be reckoned with, because we're the oldest and the boldest and the baddest civil rights organization that there is.
So let me ask this, and I'm going to give it back to Dr. Warren. Can you talk about the collaborations that you have established over the last 6 months of your tenure, and also swing it into Giving Tuesday?
Okay. One of my favorite collaborations is with I, My Brother's Keeper. As everyone knows, Giving Tuesday, normally an organization, they give to themselves. They're asking the community, they're asking the world, look at my organization, look what we've done. I'm a collaborator. I know that a lot of my members appreciate what I, My Brother's Keeper has been doing every Tuesday because they're there. They go to the other distributions around the city because COVID-19 has hit them very hard. So I went to my board, I went to my executive committee, and I asked them, given the climate, given that we know that a lot of members of the NAACP San Diego branch are going to the food distribution, let's raise funds for them. The first time that I introduced it, I didn't get a yes vote. It was 10-4. And so I couldn't get a unanimous vote. I took it back again because I'm an only child. I don't mind hearing no. And so I'll come back. And it is what it is. No doesn't faze me. I'm going to come around you. So the second time I brought it up, COVID-19 got a unanimous vote. So the executive committee of the NAACP San Diego branch, they've all donated to Giving Tuesday. We've gone out to the community and we're asking them to go to our website, give to Giving Tuesday, because all that money goes directly to I, My Brother's Keeper to help him and the volunteers. I've also collaborated very well with Generation Justice. As I shared, we've recently done a town hall introducing the community to the probation department. The probation department of yesteryears are gone, and under the leadership of Chief Adolfo, it has changed. We were able to highlight and showcase what has been occurring. And so I collaborate with a lot of people. We're doing something this coming week with High Tech High. And so just very interested. The children want to interview a legacy organization. They reached out. I gave it to a couple of my members, and they will be hosting a Zoom. I'm coming on quickly as the president of the NAACP San Diego branch, and then I'll go back to work, and members of the NAACP San Diego branch will be sitting, talking about civil rights with youth from 2 different high-tech highs.
Well,
Well, I
I'm
want to,
gonna stop this 'cause I want to go to Dr.
yeah,
Warren and
because I
ask
want
you
to
this
get
question, Dr.
some
Warren.
points in. I got a couple of things.
Dr. Warren, you was in a giving spirit this week too,
Yeah.
in collaboration. Let's talk about that.
Yeah.
Because I was like, what? Dr. Warren is you literally, a lot of times people don't know your heart until they experience your heart. And I think this week you actually shocked the world with some stuff that they didn't know that you always do.
Well, God does move. And I wasn't even thinking about the fact it was Giving Tuesday at the point. But I woke up realizing that I needed to do something, even as I personally go down and pass out all those papers each week. So this Tuesday, the Voice of Viewpoint gave $1,000 to I Am My Brother's Keeper to be used for the volunteers in any way, either stipends or feeding them, because I see how hard they work. And at the same time, I gave $1,000 to Paving Great Futures, going toward their efforts and their upcoming annual event,
Okay.
so that they could be they're blessed in it. And of course, for Brother Carlton Overstreet, with what he's doing, because of his involvement with him at Temecula, Winchester, I hired a person to take the Voice and Viewpoint up to those communities, some 300 papers,
Oh, that's great.
every Thursday morning, so that they'll be there in time for the people preparing the food distributions for Friday in those areas, and that way they'll get the ordinances and all the rules and things that we happen. So, yeah, let's say I woke up in the spirit.
Amen.
Yeah, and I always remind people that we're required to give of our time, our talent, and our treasure in terms of it. And I can tell you that God always shows up and shows out. Um, what we did on Tuesday, I had 10 times that come back before noon the same day
Amen.
in 3 hours that just came back to us, unasked for, unlooked for. And so, and we're going to continue to give because we have been blessed and people support. And I want people to understand the Voice of Viewpoint not only has done that, but we have given the paper to the food distribution sites every week at our own expense, with no sponsorship to it. So almost 2,000 papers a week, and we have also made it online available to people. So we're just really working to make those things happen, and we're excited about the participation.
And people are very appreciative, Dr. Warren. I was in Spring Valley and I told them exactly what you told me. Go to your city council, go to your mayor, and Dr. Warren will get a stand down here, but you guys have to ask for it.
Yes, because we're under attack in terms of our stands, and we've been really catching it. But I'm excited about it, and I wanted to mention, this has been the Francine Maxwell Hour because of all the stuff she's doing. But a lot of people don't know that within Black Men and Women United over a year ago, she brought the idea to us to adopt Bell Middle School, if you will. We did a pantry there and sporting equipment and all kinds of things.
Yeah.
She was also one of the lead characters that brought the idea to us that we had to help the Haitians that were trapped in Mexico because they weren't allowed to come over, and it's been over a year there. And so the Voice of Viewpoint became a drop-off site as people dropped off food, clothing, and supplies, which were picked up and transported over to them. So we just want our community as a people to be reminded that everything we built over the past 100 years has been the result of us giving and sharing and not trying to get for ourselves, and I like this theme song that we have. It was my mother's favorite, and I listen to it still. If I can help somebody, then my living would not have been in vain. I want to take the opportunity, as has been flashed up on the screen, the propositions that we want people to vote. We know the NAACP is going to be helping. All of us are going to be trying to get people out to the polls. And we've made some recommendations in our voting guide. And I don't know, Dr. Thompson, do I have a moment to just mention them to people not
Yes, sir.
looking at them, and I'll run through them real fast here?
Well, don't take your time. We want to
Oh.
make sure this is a special edition show.
Okay, so the first one on the bond for, the recommendation is yes, and that is going to help our schools, if you will. Prop 15 is going to raise taxes, and we see a commercial running, and it's been pointed out that small businesses are going to suffer the most. because if we're taxed, it hampers us in terms of trying to help people. Prop 16, affirmative action, we know this is reversing what we lost in terms of 209, and it's important no matter what some people keep talking about unfair treatment. We deserve to be given the opportunity to catch up, and it's important. Prop 17 is voting rights, and that makes it very clear that young people 18 should be allowed to vote. These votes won't be able to take place in this election, but going forward, we're going to have it in terms of I'm sorry, that the voting rights, that was different than Prop 18. Prop 18 is voting age, and what was Prop 17? Because I couldn't see it as I was looking at it here.
I'll blow it up.
Yeah. Prop 17.
Prop 17 is the voters' right recommendation.
Yes. Oh, okay. And what the Prop 17 does, it makes sure that people who are on parole have the vote restored to them. Those who have already served time get the vote, but you can still be out of jail on parole and not able to vote because you're on parole. So we're against that. Prop 20 is a very tricky one, and I'm suggesting that we vote no on it because Prop 20 takes some of the elements under Propositions 47 and 57, which were passed to decriminalize, say, marijuana or some other things, and it changed some things from felonies to misdemeanors. And this is an effort to switch some things back to felonies. And so we always have to be mindful because we are the ones who are in jail the most. We are the ones who are the filling the jails and the greatest victims. And so we want to be mindful on Prop 20. Prop 21, rent control. You hear people hollering against rent control. This is one of the things that we got sold out on the last time we had Proposition 11 elections when Prop 10 was on the ballot. And people said, well, why do we need a rent control? Well, we had a form of rent control going back to 1996 in California. But here's what we need to understand, that after the housing foreclosure crisis that took place, investors bought those homes, and then they rented them back to the people who had owned the homes, and they're able to rent them at rental rates that were higher than the mortgages that people were paying. And so this allows some control over single housing units, which would represent houses that are now being rented instead of just apartment buildings. And so it's important that we give local government the opportunity to make some rules. And we can see right here some of the issues, because if it wasn't for the county as well as the state stepping in, we would already have a surge in people being evicted and growing our homeless problem, which includes many women and children, which is a crisis, okay? Health care is a very important one that we need to vote yes on health care. And this is the tricky one. If you look at the commercial that's running, you see this older black man who's on dialysis, and he's telling you that you're just about pulling the plug on him if you vote for health care. And then there's this older lady who's on dialysis, and they all going to die if you vote for this. It's just the opposite. We need to know that the dialysis industry is the one financing the opposition of Prop 23. And why are they against it? Because Prop 23 will require that each dialysis facility have a doctor on hand unless it gets a state exemption due to a shortage of doctors, number one. It requires, number two, that you cannot turn down anyone based on their source of payment, because a lot of people are being shut out. And it requires that data be maintained in terms of infection data, because nobody's controlling or looking at that now. And it also puts these clinics under state supervision, so you can't even close a dialysis center unless there's some approval there. All these things are going to make a difference, because a lot of people are getting dialyzed right now are only getting like 80 to 85% of their treatment in an effort to rush other people through. And that's really detrimental in terms of their health. So that's why we want people to go and vote yes on Prop 23 and not be led by the commercial with my poor brother on there looking like he's about to die, because that's just part of the game, okay? Now, we got the Prop 24, the California Consumer Protection Laws. We all know that we need consumer protection, but Prop 25 is another one that you really have to pay some attention to. It's the bail system. And we're pushing for the passage of Prop 25 because what it does is it does away with the money bail that we now have, which, as the commercials and things say, will allow a rapist to get out because he's got money, but will have a poor black person in jail forever because he doesn't have 50 cents. And it switches the system. Yes, one of the flaws in the system, and we discussed this on Black Men and Women United and also with Assembly Members Weber and other people in the state, is that the algorithm used that will determine how judges rule in terms of a risk system. The system will let the judge decide based on the crime and whether or not the person is going to be a risk to the community. We know that the algorithms are working against us. We hope those things can be fixed. But in the meanwhile, the county of San Diego has already moved in the direction of this change almost 2 years ago. And the city of Washington, D.C. has been on this system for a number of years. And the interesting thing about D.C.'s risk aversion system is that with this new system that has moved from money bail, they have less than the 20% recidivism rate. And so these are things that we need to look at. On the city side, we have several measures. If you will pull it up a little more, Dr. Thompson, because the city's got like 4, 5 pieces there. If you go down it, I'm just going to tell you how we voted on them. Measure A, no. Measure B, yes. Measure C, yes. Measure D, yes. Measure E, no. And so we have in those propositions, we have the Citizens Review Commission that's going to be independent now at last, finally getting on the ballot. I want to say that back in the late 1989 or 90s when the first commission was picked up, was created, I advocated then that it should have subpoena power and be independent, and they fought against it in every way that they could. And so we want you to look at these. We have made some endorsements in terms of people running for office. The people that we have to choose from this year do not represent neither the best nor the brightest. In some cases, it's the lesser of evils in terms of what we have to go with. But you got to vote as opposed to a no vote ends up being one that goes in opposition. We certainly are endorsing and supporting the Biden-Harris ticket. We are supporting Campbell Najjar in East County because I think it's a disgrace that Darrell Issa would come from North County and go to East County and get on the ballot just because the good old boys at East County don't want a Chaldean to be a member of Congress. We're supporting, again, Vargas and Scott Peters, who is so helpful. And we have a new situation here with Sarah Jacobs. Sarah Jacobs is a newcomer, and she's got a lot of playing on her relationship with President Obama. And then we have Georgette Gomez. And I ended up supporting Sarah Jacobs for this because I've seen what Georgette has done. She didn't come back and try to be a friend to her own district, and I don't think she deserves to go to Washington. And if you think differently, then you can vote for her. Jacobs get in there. I haven't been too happy about the way she's been running a campaign. I don't see any people of color in all these TV ads that are running. And I don't see a real sensitivity behind that nice little soft smile. But we got to have somebody in there, and it's a 2-year term, and I will work just as hard to get her out of there at the end of 2 years if we don't see a change. Toni Atkins, because she is President Pro Tem of the Senate, and she represents the first time we've had that leadership from down south here, which has been supportive to Assemblymember Weber and all the things that she's done. Brian Mainshine has always been a friend to the community, and so we didn't just do this based on a southeastern San Diego Assembly District. We looked at the state. We know what Dr. Weber's record is. Lorena Gonzalez brought us the bad news of AB 5, and she made Prop 22, which I don't think we mentioned up there, necessary. And Prop 22 is the proposition that will overturn AB 5. And AB 5 was the proposition that will eliminate the part-time work that's being done by the Uber, Lyft drivers and people who do part-time food deliveries and all those things in a pandemic when people need whatever income. The bill that Lorena got through the Assembly before the pandemic was based on what happened with the Diatex court decision 2 years ago. And so AB5 would make all employees, all consultant, independent contractors, employees that would have to be paid benefits. And so we know that part of that came about as a result of Uber and Lyft taking advantage of workers and not standing behind and helping them. But it's turned into a real Donnybrook force because already the Assembly has passed a number of bills that have created exemption categories. Even our community newspapers will be affected because the way it was written, we can't hire independent writers or distributors, and if we got to hire people with all those benefits, then we're going to be in trouble. And so this is what we're doing. For the county offices, we have Tim Nader, who was in the district attorney's office, a former National City council member, a person who has been user-friendly to the community. We're recommending Nora Vargas for Supervisor Cox's position. Nora Vargas, even though we had some real issues with her as president of Southwestern College, and we've dealt with that, and they're trying to overcome some of their racial issues that were raised and studied and new recommendations. But Ben Huesos was definitely unacceptable for anything. And I wouldn't vote for him for dog catcher. He has not done anything for our community. He's arrogant. He doesn't listen. And it's time for us to send Ben home so he can go find something else to do. We are supporting Steve Voss for Diane Jacobs' position. And Steve is mayor of Poway. And we need to understand that that district, while Spring Valley and Lemon Grove are in the district that Diane represents, the way the district has been drawn, if every black person in those two areas voted, you still wouldn't outvote Tacoma, Jacumba, Descanso, and all of those other rural areas of the county that are so much larger than this piece. This man has demonstrated a heart and a passion and a concern for the people. Evidence when the shooting took place in terms of Poway. I've built a relationship with him and very interested in what he's doing. And so I think that he will be of benefit. If we get the two of them there, that's two people that are positive that's going to make a difference. Now, we know also, while we don't know Tara Lawson-Remer, who's running against Gasbar, we know that Gasbar is so Trumpy that she ought to have one of them little Trump dolls on the hood of her car. And that she definitely is not a friend of ours. And so, we have to do something that was said many years ago by Julian Bond and later adopted by Jesse Jackson. And Julian made the statement when he was in the Georgia Assembly. He said, no permanent friends, no permanent enemies, permanent interests. And so we're building coalitions. And I want the people in the southeastern San Diego and others to realize that the Voice of Viewpoint is in all 89 zip codes of San Diego County, and we expect you to vote and to get out there and mark your ballot. Everybody won't have every person on the ballot, but we already mentioned Barbara, and if you don't go that way, that's your choice. Corey Briggs is being endorsed because Myra Elliott has had an opportunity, and she blew it. We endorsed her 4 years ago, and we didn't hear from her. And when we did hear from her, she came to Paradise, to the new library out there in Paradise, what is it?
Skyline.
Skyline Library, and told us that she represented the city council and the mayor, and that she was their council and not our council. So we want to give her a chance to go back someplace where she can represent them and not do it in the position that's there right now. And so Sean Leo Rivera is the last man standing because Barrios got into all kinds of problems in terms of his race, and he's telling people he's on the ballot, but he's not campaigning. He hopes that he can be a sleeper and get in there. Education-wise, we're going with Lorana Richmond over Sharon Whitehurst Payne because Sharon has had an opportunity. Let's give somebody else a chance. And the good thing about this time is that after we get through this election, hopefully, with one of those measures from the city, we're now going to have district elections for the San Diego Unified School District, and they will no longer be the victim that Lawana will be, because no matter how hard she works, Sharon can kick back, and with the vote at large for that, she can still be put in by the rest of San Diego County who could care less about the district out here. And so we are also supporting Sabrina Razzo for District A, Camille Harris for District D, and LaWanna Richmond for District E in terms of San Diego Unified. Those votes should be able to help you in terms of casting a ballot. We encourage you to vote. If you get a question, you get lost, you want to discuss, if you call, I'll try and talk to you. But let me just tell you, I'm not going to hold a debate with anyone on these choices. If you have a question, I'll try to give you an answer. If you think you calling me because I will argue with you, you're going to get a dial tone because I'm not going to do it. So I did my homework. You don't like what we did? Do your homework and come to your decisions. But as I told one member of our community who tried to tell me he was supporting Trump, I said, please don't tell anybody or we're going to have to ask you to move. Because I still have a problem with black people supporting Donald Trump. And I'm not afraid to say it. I mean, like, how insane can you be? And we got people in San Diego County who look like us that think Donald Trump is just the most wonderful thing. And he's following herd immunity, trying to kill off as many people as he can. And so I think this election is as important as 1776 when we got our freedom from England. And that's how much we got to vote. And I hope that you will look at this and put your personal prejudice. Not one person up there is going to satisfy all the things that you're concerned about. But you got to grow up and be bigger than a one-person vote. The people that I'm saying no to, you might think I sound hard, but I'm in this business 52 weeks a year, 365 days, and I know more than I say about all of them. And I'm not saying anything that I won't say in court and publish. And I wouldn't advise anybody to come challenge me unless they're ready for the bright light of sunshine and transparency. I thank you, Dr. Thompson, and for you all listening.
Well, Dr. Warren, we appreciate the Voters Guide. And just to let everyone know that this Voters Guide is being brought to you by the San Diego Voice and Viewpoint. We want to applaud you because every year so many people look towards the Voters Guide from the San Diego Voice and Viewpoint to not only help them make some decisions, but also maybe answer some questions that they might not have understood, and this brought more light to it. Just want to give everybody the information that there are several other voter guides out there that you can also seek out and just do some comparison if you need to do, but also realize that at the end of the day, the vote is yours, and what we mainly want you to do is vote. And whoever you vote for, vote your convictions, but realize that we have to live after the election. And that's what's going to be so much important to us, is that we must live and we must thrive after the election. And I want to encourage people, don't be caught up with the stardom or the superstardom of what people think is a star. Again, an actor is an actor is an actor, but an actor is not reality. It is fantasy. And we need to really, truly move our nation from fantasy to activity and to reality. Dr. Warren.
Yeah, I would notice that one of our callers was asking, where can you find the guide? Again, the Voice and Viewpoint is online at sdvoice.info. The voter guide is there online, as well as it's in print copy, is being distributed free in the paper, and you can go online or you can pull it up in the paper and look at it. And so I invite you to do that. Also, in this last issue, the next three issues, the double truck, 2 pages of the county health ordinance in terms of what those rules are. There's some changes that were mentioned today. We will be publishing them by next week when we get them. And so we want to encourage you, if you in doubt, you can email or call a paper. They can point you to the guide, and we hopeful that it'll be helpful to you. And our caller asked, who did we endorse for mayor? We endorsed Barbara Bree for mayor.
And one of the things I do want to say to everybody is that the election is not over until we do our final vote. I literally personally changed about 3 of my decisions over the last 3 weeks based on some of the things that the candidates have done that have made me say, okay, I have to move to the other or the opposition. So I want you to make sure that you're staying aware of what is taking place with each candidate before you vote, and making sure that you see how they are operating now. And here's the key, and I'm going to turn it back to Francine Maxwell with the NAACP, and then Dr. One, I want you to close out. But
Okay.
here's the key. The way that I determine who I will vote as an incumbent or support as an incumbent is this how they respond over their term after they're elected. You don't, if you come to us now and you ask for support now and you are all chummy, but then when you get in office, we don't see you until election time comes, that's how you lose the support. We need to know that you're going to be just as active after the election and just as accessible after the election, still going and eating that bow leg barbecue or going down to the fish shop, or going to the different places in the community that you did when you needed the vote. That's what we want to see. We still want to see if you're going to advertise on GOD radio and the Voice and Viewpoint as a consistency, not because you're running, because you know that it's a viable way to get things out. So please understand that the votes that you are getting are not given to you a second term unless you're doing the right things with your platform when you get in office. Ms. Maxwell.
Well, I certainly have listened and learned a lot tonight, but I'm excited about November 12th, the election for the NAACP San Diego branch. I'm running for president. I'm running with my first vice president, Brian Bonner. I need good people at the table to move this organization. So I'm hoping that people will do their research, because there's some names on that slate that no one's ever heard of. And so you have to be very careful and you have to be intentional. This is a heightened sense of urgency. This time is not going to come around again. And so the election is important. I've always been a big proponent of voter registration. The NAACP San Diego branch, we've been at food distributions for the past 5 months, and it was so heartwarming to see a grandmother in Lemon Grove, her grandson registered to vote, and she thought that she would never see it. He's never participated in an election. Wow. And this is the first election because he heard me say, "We're done dying." It's a theme of the NAACP. We're done dying. I need everybody to vote 45 out of there. And he said, "Grandma, I'm about to register." And it just brought tears. And so everybody was crying to see that 92-year-old woman that was there sitting in the car to get the food distribution. So I'm about service. My heart is right. I don't need a title, but I'm going after this title. So if you're an NAACP San Diego branch member and you join the branch by October 12th, you'll be able to vote November 12th, and I'm hoping that I've earned your vote to become the president for the full 2-year term of the NAACP San Diego branch. So help me restructure, help me move the train so that we can pass it to the next generation. Thank you.
And we're looking forward to this building this trilateral partnership in terms of what we're going to do. I want to make an observation that I left out to Dr. Thompson, that in the Voice and Viewpoint, and you can find it online, there's a chart of all the drop-off points for the register of voters. And we're partnering with them to help get this word out. And so you don't have to worry about, is your ballot going to be turned in? When my wife and I voted, we got our ballots last Monday. Tuesday, she insisted we drove out to the register of voters, right up to the door, and handed it to the people standing out there in the little jackets, and so that we knew that those votes were going to be counted. I also want to add to what Dr. Thompson just said about people. One of the reasons of two of the changes this year in terms of the ballot is because 4 years ago, we did embrace Maya Elliott. We thought this was an opportunity for the first woman city attorney, and she turned her back on us in terms of not being visible. And then at the last minute, when she did decide to start writing, she had the audacity to publish commentaries in the Union Tribune and send me a copy to read in the Voice as the publisher of the Voice and Viewpoint. And Georgette Gomez, we did the same thing in District 9. We supported her, and we thought that she cared. Black women, Men and Women United brought them to the table. We never heard another word from either one. So that Dr. Thompson is making the point that we are observing all year long. We're not just waiting for election time. And that's why we're giving people a chance. But this editorial this week, I make it very clear that even though we have to vote for some of these people right now, Ms. Maxwell, Dr. Thompson, this is the time for us to start training the people that we want to put in office in the next 2 to 4 years. That we need new people, and we need to make friends in all of the districts of San Diego. We're not going to be restricted to the 4 and the 8 and the 9 like that's it. There's no natural. We're everywhere. We live all over this place, and we need to pull everybody together, start looking for some people. And I am excited about voting for the passion of Miss Francine Maxwell over the pearls that are on the other side of this challenge. Thank
Well,
you.
thank you all for tuning into this special edition from the desk of the editor with Dr. John Warren. I'm Dr. LT with Miss Francine Maxwell, president currently of the NAACP. You all have a very blessed evening. Until next week.